We are indeed in the midst of a prison crisis. However, Lucy Connolly will spend more time in prison than some of the men convicted in the Telford grooming gang scandal.
It's a misconception of what took place in Lucy Connolly's case. She was somebody who was inciting racial hatred during a period. So it's really important that you educate yourself on that before you say something like that.
Let me just...
The despicable, arrogant barrister was getting the loudest applause all night, which is more evidence that the BBC Question Time audience is specifically chosen for its left-wing bias. One audience member, about the only one who wasn't a clapping seal, said, "Is it right? Lucy Connolly got a longer prison sentence for a tweet that she said in anger and later deleted than convicted grooming gang members got. And is it right she has been denied leave to see her daughter and seriously ill husband while violent criminals and sex offenders are being released early?" The hideous barrister arrogantly replied that he needs to educate himself before making such comments. Despicable. Then, unbelievably, the host said, for those of you who don't know what she tweeted, she urged people to go burn down a hotel full of illegal immigrants. That's a complete lie, a total lie. She said, burn them down for all I care. That is not the same as urging people. Urging would be telling people it's their duty to burn them down or offering a reward for doing it. It's times like this I wish I was on that panel because no one was there to put that arrogant, awful human rights barrister in his place. No one denied what Lucy Connolly said was awful, but she is a political prisoner and it's not rocket science to explain why. She has been made an example of to silence anyone with right-wing opinions and to clamp down on what people comment online. This country is becoming more and more authoritarian by the day. All the while, people endorse Islamic terrorism on the streets and attack elected right-wing politicians and don't go to jail. Just take a watch of this.
We are indeed in the midst of a prison crisis. However, Lucy Connolly will spend more time in prison than some of the men convicted in the Telford grooming gang scandal. What does it say that the justice system wants to punish tweets more seriously than child sexual abuse? Maybe if we could look at that, we might be able to address the number of people...
That's a misconception of what took place in Lucy Connolly's case. She was somebody who was inciting racial hatred during a period... I would strongly recommend you read the judge's sentencing. The sentencing from the judge will have been following a particular set of guidelines which has a starting point, which then considers aggravating features to come out at the answer. Nobody has put that woman in prison longer because of a tweet, but because of what she did, how she did it, and when she did it. So it's really important that you educate yourself on that before you say something like that.
Let me just clarify for those who are not aware of what's happened to Lucy Connolly. So Lucy Connolly, in the aftermath of those terrible Southport attacks, she put out a tweet urging people who read it to set fire to a hotel housing asylum seekers. She did then delete it, and she was given 31 months and she lost her appeal this week. So, look, I know you want to come in. By all means, talk about that, but let's also talk generally about why is the government planning to let criminals out early and what has come out today of this independent sentencing review?
On the specifics of the Lucy case, I think that she said a despicable and immoral thing in a clearly divisive and extremely troubling time when riots were taking place and so on and so forth. I don't actually think that that's disputed. I think the question is whether someone should get 31 months in prison or be sentenced to 31 months as a result of that when she has a husband that has bone marrow failure, she has a young child, and she has no previous convictions in the past. So I think that there is a really important question to be asked there about why people are being sent to prison when we know that actually sex offenders and other people that commit crimes are being given suspended sentences. And I think that that's the question that a lot of people are asking. It's not so much the specifics of whether what she did was right or wrong. But on the question of the broader issue that we're talking about today, the Conservatives undoubtedly left the prison system in an absolute mess, but that does not mean that what is being done is an answer to that or anywhere closer to an answer to that. When we had the last early release scheme, someone actually came out and then committed murder within days of actually being released. And the reality is, for a lot of people, it feels like the social contract is being broken, where if you commit crimes, even if it's so-called petty crimes like shoplifting, antisocial behaviour, burglary, you will essentially get a slap on the wrist. And I regularly, go to my local supermarket and the security guards are completely overwhelmed with the amount of criminal gangs that are just wreaking havoc on communities. And I think that these things lead to a huge lowering of living standards and a general sense that the quality of life in this country is declining. And I think I've read some really shocking statistics that between 2007 and 2018, 32,000 people avoided prison that had over 50 previous convictions. So I think I would argue that we need to get much tougher on criminals. We need to jail career criminals. I don't think that we should be letting people out early, because I think that that actually doesn't address some of the underlying causes that we're talking about.
So it's build more prisons and loads of them, because we're due to run out of places.